We begin. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Begin with the heart. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Begin with the heart. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Begin with the heart.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the First Unitarian Fellowship of Nanaimo. Our mission is to create spiritual connection and bring compassion, discovery, and social justice to life. My name is Nuria Korten. I am the service leader this morning. My pronouns are she and her. Please take a moment now to silence your cell phones. Thank you. And while you're doing that, let's say hello to everyone attending on Zoom. Turn to the frog at the back of the hall and wave. We are in gallery mode, so those in the hall and those on Zoom can wave to each other. Whatever your hopes, dreams, and aspirations, whatever your race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, whatever makes you who you are warmly welcome here. In keeping with our Unitarian Universalist aspiration of radical inclusion, we invite you to share your pronouns as well as your full name when introducing yourself, if you are comfortable doing so. We are grateful for a diversity of voices on Sunday mornings, and our services vary from week to week. They generally run from 60 to 75 minutes. If this is your first time with us, a very special welcome to you. If you are joining us online, please consider sharing your contact information with the host by going to the chat icon at the bottom of your screen. We would love to welcome you to our community. We invite you to check our wonderful website, ufon.ca, that's spelled ufon.ca, for information about who we are, the services we offer, and how to connect with us. We acknowledge today that we meet on the traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nation. As Unitarians, we are committed to the work of reconciliation required to address the harm done to all Indigenous peoples and their cultures by non-Indigenous peoples. We have much to learn from the Indigenous perspective, that the earth is the source of all life, and that our responsibility is to honor and care for it. We have 3 announcements. Audrey Lomax reminds us that the UU Women's Group will be meeting tomorrow, Monday, March 10th, from 2 to 4 p.m. in the hall and on Zoom, and the link is listed on the weekly update. Our next announcement: everyone is creative. Creativity is everywhere. That's the premise of Lois Peterson's new book, Creatively Human, which launches here next Sunday, March 16th at 12:30 with book sales, signings, and do-it-yourself cupcakes. Written for youth, suitable for adults. $10 from the sale of each book will be donated to our fellowship. $25 a copy, by cash or e-transfer, no obligation to purchase. Check in with Lois for more information. Last but not least, Dawn with a Canvas announcement.
Hello, my name's Don Gayton, and I'm on the Canvas committee. So do we have the slide? Oh, here we go. So drum roll, please. Anyway, yeah, so we're up to 35,000, and that's about on track for this time. Like this is our first full week of like a 4-week canvas. However, if you love your Canvas team, which I know you do, the best way to show your appreciation is to pledge before we have to start sending out reminder emails and phone calls. That is the least pleasant part of our job. And the good news, it takes less than a minute to pledge. If you got the email, you just click the link, you give us your name, how much you're pledging, and how you want to pay. Super easy. If by chance you haven't received your pledge package or you deleted it by mistake, just send an email to Brenda in the office and she can resend it to you. Thank you.
To find out about special events, groups, and meetings taking place in the hall or on Zoom, go to the calendar on our website. Read the monthly newsletter and weekly update emailed to you on Fridays. Or check out the whiteboards in the hall by the washrooms. Let us now enter into sacred time as our music director, Leah Håkansson, leads us into worship.
Good morning, everyone. Our prelude this morning, in the spirit of belonging, was inspired by words by Henry David Thoreau. Consent only to be what you are. Consent only to be what you are. Consent only to be what you are. 'Cause what you are is beautiful to me, my friend. Consent to be the wholeness of you. Consent only to be who you are. Consent only to be who you are. 'Cause who you are is beautiful to me, my friend. Consent to be the wholeness of you. Consent only to be where you are. Consent only to be where you are. 'Cause where you are is beautiful to me, my friend. Consent to be the wholeness of you. Consent to be the wholeness of you.
Thank you, Leah. Today's service is titled Belonging and is presented by Reilly Yeo. Prior to entering seminary, Reilly Yeo was Director of Communications and Public Engagement at the David Suzuki Foundation. She now serves as co-founder of Climate Plan, helping people and their communities respond to climate change. Reilly's ministry work focuses on the twin challenges of spiritual resilience and systems change in the face of the polycrisis, the interlocking crisis of crises defining our time. She lives in James Bay in Victoria, on the unceded territory of the Swenghang people, with her partner Jamie and their children Avery and Elise. Reilly will now read the opening words.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today to explore the very important question of belonging that seems to be sort of everywhere in the zeitgeist these days, this question of what does it mean to belong? Why is it such a struggle in our world? Because there is so much in our world that weakens the fabric of belonging, pushes us to become isolated and alone. But here we renew our commitment to seek each other out, to support each other, to create a safe harbor where joys and concerns can be shared, and to cultivate internally a depth of connection to our spirits, then to our community, and then to the wider interdependent web of existence, which is our seventh principle as Unitarian Universalists. I hope you'll consider also staying after the service today. We're going to create a space to unburden everything in our hearts and minds through sharing circles, where we're going to explore the theme of the service more deeply. We'll be asking ourselves, what does it mean to belong to this fellowship? To belong as a Canadian, to belong as a Unitarian Universalist, and to belong to the interdependent web of existence. How do the crises in the wider world that seem to be accelerating and relentless, how do those impact our sense of belonging? And then how do we develop deeper and more resilient belonging in the face of all that change? As we light our chalice today, I'm going to invite Nuria forwards to light it. Let's prepare to reflect on what belonging means to us as we deepen our sense of belonging to ourselves, to each other, and to the wider world. Spirit of life, known by many names, but by no name fully known. With this candle, we invite you into our hearts and our gathering today. Help the flame of belonging burn bright, even in a tempestuous world. And honor us with your presence today, Great Spirit. So now, please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn 1051, We Are by Isaiah Barnwell.
For each other's fall, the morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each other's fall, the morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors.
want to say too, for those who are newer to Unitarian Universalism, we really encourage you to insert whatever language works for you. So I like to sing Spirit of Love. Other people may use God or Goddess or just the divine, the mystery. So we invite that kind of tailoring to what resonates for you. I'm going to read our Time for All Ages story now and try to get through it without crying. I find it very moving. And I know there's a kiddo here today, so if they would like to come up to the front, they'd be welcome to. The story is called Luli and the Language of Tea. There's Luli's classroom. The playroom was quiet. Luli couldn't speak English, neither could the others. All around the room, children played alone. Last time, Luli had played by herself too, until she had an idea. She'd drawn it for Miss Hirokane, and this time, Luli had a plan. From inside her backpack and onto the round table, Luli set a thermos, a canister, stacks of cups, and a fat-bellied teapot. Out of the canister and into the teapot, Luli dropped a small ball of tea leaves. Plop. Out of the thermos and over the tea leaves, Luli poured steaming hot water. Ploosh. Luli took a deep breath. Cha, she called in Chinese. All around the room, heads popped up. Te? Asked Maxime in Russian. Chai? Anaya said in Hindi. Te? Asked Karam in Turkish. Chai? Niku said in Persian. She? Asked Hakim in Arabic. Te? Valentina said in Spanish. Tea? Asked Matthias in German. Chai? Tishala said in Swahili. Sha? Asked Pedro in Portuguese. The tea was ready. Luli beamed. She was ready. Cha! She beckoned. All around the room, children joined together. Luli poured the first cup and gave it to Maxime, who gave it to Anaya, who gave it to Karem, who gave it to Niku, who gave it to Hakim, who gave it to Valentina, who gave it to Matthias, who gave it to Tishala, who gave it to Pedro. All around the table, children passed tea. Everyone had a full cup, except Luli. Pedro took Luli's empty cup and passed it to Tishala, who passed it to Matthias, who passed it to Valentina, who passed it to Hakim, who passed it to Niku, who passed it to Karem, who passed it to Anaya, who passed it to Maxime, who passed it to Luli. All around the table, each child gave a little tea. Now everyone had a share. Hands curled around warm cups, mouths curved into shy smiles. Luli took another deep breath and pulled out one last surprise. She held up a box and spoke her new favorite word in English. Cookie? The playroom was no longer quiet. Luli's teapot was empty, but her heart was full. Okay, let's sing now our children's recessional song. Nita will lead us through it.
As you go, may your heart be at peace as you go, to nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our hearts as you go. Nous vous enterrons des mots maintenant et toujours, pouvons que soyez paix pour toujours. Quand il
What a lovely story. It is time for Sharon and Charla to pass out the offering baskets. For those of us here with us for the first time, your presence is your contribution. Those online can go to our website and click the big blue donate button on the homepage to give. To help the wider community, half of all cash donations will be given to our charity of the month. This month's charity is Eco-Justice. Using the law to protect life on Earth, they take governments and polluters to court. They started as the Sierra Legal Defense Fund in 1990 as a direct response to the Exxon Valdez disaster, which was then the world's worst oil spill. What began as two determined people working out of the back of a car is now a leading Canadian charity, led by lawyers, scientists, and subject matter experts. For more than 30 years, eco-justice lawyers have represented people like us at every level of court, free of charge. If you want your donation to go to Eco-Justice, please note that on your e-transfer or your check. Thank you for your support.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
As a spiritual community, it is our intention to be authentically present to one another, especially in these very different times. One way we do this is by including in the service a time to listen to the significant personal milestones in our lives. If you have had such a milestone and wish to share it, now is the time to do so. We'll begin with those in the hall, and then we'll invite those attending on Zoom. Now, so you'll be coming to this side. Sorry. You'll be using this microphone, and the pebbles are here. As I place the final pebble in the water bowl for the joys and concerns that have been left unspoken, I ask that you hold in your heart everything that you have heard and felt.
We share in love, we listen in love, we hold one another in love. Each joy and concern we witness and learn and grow together in love, and grow together in love.
Now we make time in the service for some contemplative practice, some meditative time, which we lead into usually with a reading. So I'll read this poem. It's called The House of Belonging, written by David Whyte. And then we'll sit and quietly reflect, contemplate, take some breaths, and get comfortable in our seats. And then Leah will end the meditation with some music. The House of Belonging by David Whyte. I awoke this morning in the gold light, turning this way and that, thinking for a moment it was one day like any other. But the veil had gone from my darkened heart, and I thought, it must have been the quiet candlelight that filled my room. It must have been the first easy rhythm with which I breathed myself to sleep. It must have been the prayer I said, speaking to the otherness of the night. And I thought, this is the good day you could meet your love. This is the gray day someone close to you could die. This is the day you realize how easily the thread is broken between this world and the next. And I found myself sitting up in the quiet pathway of light. The tawny, close-grained cedar burning round me like fire, and all the angels of this housely heaven ascending through the first roof of light the sun has made. This is the bright home in which I live. This is where I ask my friends to come. This is where I want to love all the things it has taken me so long to learn to love. This is the temple of my adult aloneness, and I belong to that aloneness as I belong to my life. There is no house like the house of belonging.
We are one with the earth and with the endless sky. We are one with the song of the wind and with the raven's cry. We are one with the ocean, every sunset, every dawn, and so we are one with the child and the innocence they speak. We are one with all our elders and the stories they keep. We are one with each other and our deepest inner song, and so we belong to it all. We are one with all that's giving, compassionate and wise. We are one with all the dreams we work hard to realize. We are one with the love that will never let us go, and so we belong to it all. And so we belong to it all.
Now, for our March Canvas Month, I would like to invite Ruth Anderson to give her testimonial.
Hello, my name is Ruth, pronouns she, her, and I give because community doesn't just happen, and community is really important to me. And as a gardener, I know the importance of having good soil. And if you just plant crops year after year and they take from the soil and they take from the soil, things grow for a while, but after some time, it's depleted. And we have to add more to the soil. And in our society, that fertilizer, a big part of that fertilizer is money. That we can't grow our community, we don't have the strength in community if we're just drawing from the soil all the time without returning to it. And the harvest that you get from community may be small or it may be large, and it changes over time. And like the mycelium, underground, that we are all connected. And when I first moved back from China, this was a community that I could just kind of fall into and be a part of, and that was really important to me then, because I didn't know many people in Nanaimo. And in this last year, the harvest of this community has been very, very important to me. With the passing of Zale, my dear beloved Zale, and this community has been here with me and supported me, and I want to support this community, so not just so it's here for me, but so it's here for all of us. We are better and stronger together when the mycelium connects us and when we have a strong, well-fertilized soil. So that is why I give to this community, because it gives to others and to myself.
Thank you, Ruth. That I think I'm feeling extra emotional today just because it was Eliza's 5th birthday on Friday, so my younger daughter, and I'm feeling the passage of time, and just how poignant life is, really. It's nothing more profound, or maybe it's just that profound as that. And also, it's going to be my 10th wedding anniversary this year, which is very hard to believe. And some of you might remember that I told a story back in September about our wedding, about how we went on this fishing expedition up on Haida Gwaii right before our wedding took place, and how we were given this huge boon of crabs as we were preparing for it. So for those who weren't here for that story, my partner Jamie and I got married on Haida Gwaii, the traditional territories of the Haida people. It's about 750 kilometers north of here as the crow flies, and we were living up there when we got married there. And people gave us this bunch of live Dungeness crabs to share with our guests from off-island. But that was really far from all we were given for our wedding. About a third of our guests were locals from Haida Gwaii, and they just brought so many things to make our wedding work. Everything from like the sound equipment and the DJ skills, to wild strawberries, to sea asparagus, venison, a curler for my hair, and these really beautiful handmade signs that led our guests to the wedding site. And Tony, if you want to bring up the slide now, I'll show it. So the place that we got married was right in the middle of the forest. It's the slide. It's the slide before that, if it's there. Is there a first one? There might. Okay, there's only 3. That's fine. So now you've already gotten the preview of where I'm going with this, but that's okay. So I don't think the picture is there. It's fine. So we got permission from this family who had built this incredible site to get married, like way out in the middle of the forest. The directions were like, go down a dirt road about 15 minutes. You might start to see a trail on the side, walk down there. So we got married in that spot, and it's right by Naikun, which is the place where Haidas say human life began. And instead of gifts, we asked people to donate to the school lunch program that was run by the matriarch of that family, and to the totem pole that's now been raised right near that site. So our wedding also happened to take place. Now you can show that slide of the skaters. It happened to take place the same weekend as Pride in the town closest to the site, which is called Masset. And this was their 4th ever Pride that they had. And in the same way that about a third of our wedding guests were locals, maybe about a third of Pride that year, if you want to go to the next slide, Tony, about a third of Pride in Masset that year was off-islanders who had come for our wedding. And they were all so excited to see that rainbow crosswalk, that symbol of belonging for queer folks anywhere they go in the world. And it was such a special and a really sacred moment for me to see our oldest friends and our newest friends partying together and really coming together to make this event a celebration of love. But not so much romantic love, love in community, which, as Bell Hooks says, is the realest kind of love. So you might think that in a small community like Haida Gwaii, where belonging is so densely woven, it would be hard for new people to get into it. But what I discovered there is that when the web of belonging is really strong, it's not like circled wagons. It's more like an inclusive circle that adapts as it expands, which is what John Ralston Saul says. Maria, would you mind holding up the book there that's underneath my paper? So this is what John Ralston Saul says Canada is at its best. An inclusive circle that adapts as it expands. And I was already planning to quote from this book, and then as I went into the library to do a meditation with Nuria and Leah, I put my tea mug down on the shelf and saw that my tea mug was right next to the book in our library. So it's a very UU book, I think. I thought I might as well bring it out and show it. So in this book, A Fair Country, Telling Truths About Canada, John Ralston Saul explains how all of our best ideas about multiculturalism, like that we can be a mosaic, not a melting pot, or that we can be an inclusive circle that adapts as it expands. Those come very much from Indigenous cultures. And he talks a lot about the deep and often subconscious ways that Canada's been influenced by Indigenous ideas and practices. So to the extent that our unique national character, which is the subject of so much conversation these days, to the extent that that's not just a myth, I think it's about these kinds of differences. Reconciliation with the truth that belonging in Canada involves adapting to Indigenous ways of knowing. So we do have this attacker at our gates in a way that I think we've never experienced, right, on our southern border specifically, and it's making us circle the wagons. But what I hope is that we remember that it's our openness, our inclusiveness, and our adaptability that make that border worth defending in the first place. And I hope that we don't lose that as we get into the kind of competition that could make us feel very materialistic indeed. And I'll say more about that in a moment. So I've always also thought that the kind of belonging I experienced upon Haida Gwaii, you can show that last slide now, Tony, if you have it. I've always thought the kind of belonging I experienced up on Haida Gwaii is the kind we're trying to create in Unitarian Universalist communities. So belonging that is strong enough to be adaptive. Because as Unitarian Universalists, we have this third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. And you might recognize that those two halves are in a little bit of tension with each other, right? We accept each other as we are, and we encourage each other to grow. So that's the kind of tricky dance of our spirituality, is creating belonging based on the desire for growth and the desire for change, not belonging just based on a shared ideology that's fixed and doesn't change. So Reverend Fiona Heath, she gave the homily here a little while ago in the Roots of Resilience series, and she said that part of our aliveness as Unitarian Universalists is our invitation for people to pursue the fourth principle, often called the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. That's one reason why our offering is so unique and so necessary in this time, because we give a spiritual home to people who don't necessarily believe in the kinds of dogmas that are central to other faiths. So we allow beliefs to evolve as we grow as people. It's an ongoing search, not an endpoint. And for me personally, I was talking about how people can choose the words that work for them. For me personally, that growth that we're committed to is spiritual because it's about developing that sense of connection to the sacred. So a basic definition of spirituality, like the one you find if you just Google it, is that it's the quality of being concerned with spirit or soul as opposed to material things. And I think of that material not as like the Cartesian matter versus spirit, but in the sense of consumerist materialism. So that thirst for more and more and more stuff, the drive to turn what is sacred nature into commodities for consumers. What I experienced up on Haida Gwaii was that kind of belonging that makes those other lusts just fall away. That makes us less concerned with having the right kind of stuff, quiets that chattering ego that says we need to strive for more. I think when people feel a sense of spiritual uplift and service, which is what people often describe, it's that kind of homecoming that they're describing. Because without first having that sense of belonging to yourself, knowing who you truly are, what you truly value, independent of what society tells you you should value. Without that sense, it's difficult to feel a true and a lasting sense of belonging anywhere else. And that's why, like Dale White suggests in that beautiful poem, we need to find ways of belonging to our aloneness. But then belonging also allows us to move beyond ourselves. So Reverend Melora Lingood at First Victoria talks about how every religion has a diagnosis and a prescription. And for traditional Christianity, that diagnosis is sin, and the prescription is salvation through Christ. For Unitarian Universalism, the diagnosis is disconnection. Living in a culture and a society that disconnects us from our spirit, from each other, and from nature. What we try to offer here is reconnection to that still small voice within, to community, and to the interdependent web of existence, which people have many, many names for. So in the 21st century, in the face of the polycrisis, we are seeking to create that kind of belonging here, that deepened sense of connection. That belonging to self, that belonging to community, that belonging to the interdependent web. And that goes beyond hospitality or politeness or friendliness or the other words that we sometimes associate with liberal religion. So we want to create that belonging for people. Now, when most people tell stories about belonging, they tell a story about either I fit in or I didn't fit in, right? And many of us, as you use, experienced not belonging in another religious community, and then we found this one. We found a spiritual home here. But then we often find out that belonging isn't an either-or proposition. It's not simply, I do belong or I don't belong. It's sometimes I experience belonging and sometimes I still feel left out. Sometimes I feel like I'm changing in ways that make me unsure how I'm going to fit into this community. Or sometimes I think the community is changing in ways that make me unsure whether or not I'm going to still fit. And sometimes we're just having a bad day and we don't feel connected to anything. So that spiritual growth is about cultivating that steadiness and that consistency in our ability to connect. So when I first visited Haida Gwaii, it was just for a few days, and I felt this really deep sense of connection to the land, to the cedar trees specifically. And I told Jamie in tears that I was really yearning to come back for a longer stay. And I thought it was so impractical that he would just say, like, that's nice, dear. And it would be an unrealized dream. But instead he said, okay, so what would it take to make that happen? And we only got to stay there for 8 months before we had to go back to Vancouver to work on the federal election. But still, as a suburban girl, very suburban, from Richmond, living in a place like Haida Gwaii, it permanently shifted my ability to feel myself being part of the interdependent web, to experience belonging in the natural world, to be one with the earth and with the endless sky, like in Leah and Tony's song. So for me, it awakened that reverential naturalism you've heard me talk about before that makes me just remember to stop and savor the sacred. Whether it's the trees outside my window, the moon in the sky, the tides, all the gifts of living in the kinds of places that we get to live in. So the last time I went back to visit Haida Gwaii, it was for a couple weeks. It was before the pandemic. And while I was there, I ran into a Haida friend of mine, James, a tour guide who started the first Haida-led tour company on the islands. And he saw me and he said, "Welcome home," to me. And I thought, if this Haida person can say that to me, someone who is so obviously a settler and has nothing like the tie to the land that he and his family have, we can all belong to the places that we feel called to. We can all cultivate that kind of generosity of spirit, of welcoming someone who is an outsider into the place that we call home. Now, please rise and body your spirit to sing number 1074 in singing the Journey, "Turn the World Around" by Harry Belafonte. So we experience concentric circles of belonging to ourselves, to our spirits, to our community, to each other, and to the interdependent web of all existence. Each kind of belonging strengthens all of the others. I hope that some of you will stay today for the conversation about belonging we're going to have now. Together we can deepen our sense of connection. As we extinguish our chalice today, Carry its light out into the world as you reflect on the ways that you would like to see belonging evolve and grow in your life, in your relationships, and in this community. May it be so, and blessed be.
We'll now sing British Chants, so everyone please read aloud. Please, everyone please read aloud with me the words on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We are nearing the end of our service. After we sing Carry the Flame, you have the opportunity to join a social group. There are breakout rooms available online and in the hall for the next 30 minutes. If you want to join an online breakout room, stay online and the host will put you there. For those wanting to join the discussion, please stay where you are. Thank you for your participation today. I wish to thank our presenter, Reilly Yeo, our service organizer, Rupert Raj, who organized the service, prepared the script I am reading, and unfortunately was sick today. Thank you, Raj, and best wishes. Also thank our music director, Leah Hawkinson, our AV team, our greeter and offering basket bearers, our welcoming table people, our kitchen helpers, and all those who brought food and flowers, putting together such a wonderful service. We'll now sing our final song, Carry the Flame. Words are on the wall in the hall and on the back there on the side. Stand and hold hands or touch elbows as you feel comfortable.